Streaming is harder than working a 9 to 5. Not my words, but from what I've seen on my YouTube homepage, these were the words of some streamers who are in the top 1% of streaming. Now, I only skimmed just a little bit, and the two streamers I've seen say this are, one is named Hasanabi, and the other is Faze something. I'm not sure what the other part is. It's Faze something though. And I believe there are more that chimed in as well. Again, I only skimmed, and that's what I saw. Now, before I jump into this topic, I want to say you shouldn't be comparing jobs, period. Whatever the job, you really shouldn't be comparing, because let's say a job is harder or not harder. No one really wins by saying that your job is harder than theirs, or theirs is harder than yours is easier. There's really no point to that. No one wins by doing that. And also there is a saying that I'm reminded of, which is comparison is the thief of joy. And well, why are we comparing? You shouldn't be comparing. Also, it's really strange, I think, to compare one job to 95% of the jobs that are out there, because, well, a lot of jobs are 9 to 5, let's say 95. That might not be the exact number, but we'll just say 95. Fine, let's say 90. 85, whichever, pick whichever number you'd like. Why are you comparing one job to all these other jobs out there? See, each job has its own set of difficulties which are specific to that job, and, well, comparing them, I mean, if you're going to compare, you shouldn't compare, period, but if you're going to compare, I think a 1-to-1 would be better, rather than a 1 to everything else, pretty much. Yeah. Now, streaming is harder than a 9 to 5. Oh boy. Remember again that anyone can stream, and even these top streamers who are in the 1%, when it does come to streamers in the income bracket of the top 1%, well, they're anyone can stream. All it takes to stream again is knowing how to turn on a computer and hit the stream button, the record button. So the entry-level bar into streaming, it's not all that high because anyone can do it. Now, I'm not going to say that streaming is harder than another job or easier than another job. I'm not going to do that. But what I will do is I'm going to try to give you some insight into streaming that you may not have, because it's easy to look at streaming and say streaming it's easy to do. It's the easiest thing in the world. Now, it's easy to look at it and think that, but a person streaming, it's not as easy as it may seem, as it may look. I mean, technically you can sort of do that with anything. You can look at someone who is flipping burgers in McDonald's, and you can say, oh, he's only flipping burgers in McDonald's. That's an easy job. You can look at it and say that, you can think that, but there's a lot more to being on the grill working at McDonald's than meets the eye. And the same thing can be said for a construction worker who is hammering nails into a wall. You can look at them hammering nails into a wall, and you can say to yourself, oh, he's only hammering nails into a wall. I can do that. That seems really easy. So you're simplifying the activity you see them doing into a very simple base form, and you're not taking into account the other things that may come with the job and the position that they are in. For example, someone flipping burgers on a grill at McDonald's. You're not taking into account that, for instance, they're thinking to themselves that they can't move up the ladder in their job because there's room for advancement at McDonald's, but it's a very slow advancement pace. They may be thinking about the fact that their boss doesn't treat them too well because their boss maybe sees them as easily replaceable. That happens a lot with jobs that are minimum wage jobs. Your boss may make you feel like you're easily replaceable, or maybe you don't get raises at your job. They don't offer them. Some fast food places, they may offer only tiny raises of, let's say, 10 cents every 6 months. And something like that isn't really going to keep up too well with the cost of living and inflation. So this worker is now going to be worried that their job doesn't pay them enough. That's something that is always going to be in their mind. They have their boss who has made it obvious to them that they're easily replaceable. There can be a number of things that come along with a specific job. And well, the point I'm trying to make here is that each job, it has its own specific set of difficulties, and you shouldn't be comparing jobs to one another, because the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. There is no real benefit to anyone by saying that your job is harder than theirs or your job is easier than theirs. There's no benefit to that, so that shouldn't be done. Now, with streaming, what we can do is we can separate streaming into two different brackets. There are those who are part of the 1% at the very top, and there are those who are trying to make a living as a streamer. They're trying to break into it and make a living as a streamer. Now, the 1% and those trying to break in, very different set of things that come with both. I would say the 1% has it significantly easier than those trying to break into streaming, making it a living doing it. There are very different challenges that come with those. See, if you're at the top is always going to be quite a bit easier than someone who is down lower on the scale. For instance, being Elon Musk, who is in the top 1% income-wise, his life is significantly easier than someone who is making, say, $20,000. He has a different kind of stress that comes with his life, but it's easier in that most of his basic things are covered. He doesn't have to worry too much about the basic stuff, the day-to-day. He doesn't have to think too much about, say, health insurance. He knows he's got that covered. He has the money to pay for that. His meals, he doesn't have to worry too much about that. See, there are a different set of things that come with these different levels that they are at. See, the top 1%, they most likely have assistants. They have people who are helping them with everything that they do. They probably have a team that they're a part of that helps with acquiring sponsorships and deals like that. They probably have editors, people who are uploading videos to their YouTube channel, clipping their stream highlights. They have people who are moderating their streams, making sure that their chat is staying, we can say, clean. People aren't putting profanity in the chat. They're not being too disruptive. Yeah, they have people that they can hire that will help them in doing all these things. Whereas a streamer who is trying to break into streaming as a living, they don't have people who are helping them do these things. They're doing all these things themselves. So their workload is significantly higher than that person who's at the top. So yeah, looking at the top versus someone trying to break in, it's very different. The person who is trying to break in and make it to the top, well, they have it significantly harder. Now, this is an interesting topic, and I think I'm a good person to give some insights into this, being that I myself was a full-time partner Twitch streamer who made a living doing it for quite a bit. Now, I wasn't the top 1%, but I did have a bit of a following when it came to streaming over the course of my time as a streamer before I stepped away from it. I did manage to have 40,000 people hit that follow button, though my highest follower count was 30,000 because, well, people, they unfollow you as time goes on. Maybe they no longer groove with your stream, or they no longer like the game that you're playing. Yeah, different reasons, different things, people unfollow. Yeah, but when I walked away from it, I had around 30,000 followers. Also, hi, I'm Wolf. So because of that, I think I'm a good person to give some insights into this as to where these streamers are coming from when they say it's harder than now this isn't me saying that it's harder than a 9 to 5. This is me just trying to explain a little the perspective that they may be coming from, because from the outside, well, from the outside you look at streaming and you're like, oh, he's just sitting there playing video games and talking to his chat every now and again. Playing video games and talking, that's easy, I can do that. But you're kind of oversimplifying what's really going on. You're on the outside, whereas a streamer who is doing this by themselves, they're doing all these things themselves on top of streaming. Now, when it comes to them streaming, their focus is not playing the game like your focus would be if you were playing a game in your living room or at your computer with no one watching you. While they are doing that, it's a secondary focus. Remember that they're trying to make a living out of streaming. So when someone comes into their stream, they want that person to have as an enjoyable an experience as possible. They want that person to have a good time. So that's going to be a priority for them, because that person having a good time, and while every subsequent person having a good time, an enjoyable time, it's going to further push them along into making that a reality, making streaming a job for them, a career. So their focus, their number one, is going to be more on the people that are coming into their stream versus just playing the game and focusing solely on the game. Their priorities they're a bit split. Now, it'll depend on the person specifically who is playing, what they're trying to have for their stream. Some people, they may just be into being a full-on entertainer, whereas other streamers, they may be trying to go for that high-level gameplay, that top-notch gameplay. It depends on the streamer. Different streamers go for different things, but their focus is going to be different than you who is playing a game in your living room or in front of your computer. Even if someone is besides you, you're not really going to be trying to entertain that person. You may make the occasional joke with that person, you may have a laugh together, but you're not trying to entertain them or anything like that. A streamer, on the other hand, who is trying to make a career out of streaming, well, their focus first and foremost is to make it a career, to do everything that they can possible to make it a career. It's not to get to the end of the game as soon as possible. It's not to complete objectives in the game as soon as possible. It's to entertain or provide a high level of quality gameplay, a mix of those, depending on the streamer. So think of it like extremely entertaining to the people who are in their stream. So they're going to be trying to make people laugh. Basically, let's say a streamer is trying to be possible. When you invite someone over to your house and you're trying to be as good a host as possible, you're trying to make sure they have a good time, have fun, you basically have yourself turned up to the max when it comes to catering to the people who are there, who you've invited over, who is in your stream. So your priorities are different than someone who isn't doing those things. So that is something to keep in mind when you're looking at a streamer and you're saying, I can do what they're doing, it's easy. You're not thinking about what it is that they're actually doing. You're thinking about what it is that you do when you play video games by yourself, and you're not really trying to entertain someone. You're not trying to make a living out of it. You're applying your reality when you do your thing to them, whereas when they're doing their thing, well, it's entirely different. And that's something you have to think about and consider. So streaming, it has its own set of difficulties trying to break into streaming, and well, I'm just explaining some things to you that you should consider. See, they're trying to be as entertaining as possible. They're offering a different experience than what it is that you experience when you're in your living room playing a game yourself, by yourself, or even if it's with a friend. You're not going to be trying to make jokes whenever they become available, as often as they become available. That's not a priority to you. You're just going to be focused on your experience, and maybe a little bit on the experience of the person next to you, maybe a little bit. But with a streamer, they're not focused solely on their experience and what they're feeling. They're focused on other things, and that comes secondary a lot of the time, because again, they're trying to do what they can to have the best chances at turning this thing here, this streaming thing, into a job, a career. And along with that, there are all these other things that they're doing that you're not even thinking about. They're micromanaging along the way, which is taking away from their overall fun as a person playing a video game. It takes away from that, it detracts from it, because you're not only focused, you can't only be focused on you could be technically, but if you're only focused on you having fun and enjoying yourself, well, the people around you, they may not have the best experience that they can possibly have, and it's not a good idea to focus on that, because that's going to make it even harder to make it into streaming. So their focus is entirely different. They have a lot of things on their plate. Now, physical fatigue, comparing it to a construction work, different challenges. Every job has its own challenges which are specific to it, and you shouldn't be comparing. Streaming, is it physically tiring? Not so much. It's not as physically tiring as being a construction worker, but it does have its own set of challenges, a lot of them which are mental. There is a lot of mental work involved with it, and a lot of jumping around mentally. You're going from one thing to the next. You're focused on the game, you're focused on chat, you're focused on moderating that chat, you're focused on if this moment is maybe something funny, maybe you should make a clip out of it. You're trying to make a note, a mental note. There are a lot of things that you're doing as a streamer, a lot of mental work that is going on. And there's another aspect to it which this one more applies to the 1%, in that people will look at the things you're doing. They're looking at you under a microscope. Remember, you're on the screen at all times if you have a webcam and you're streaming. So there are eyes on you at all times, and that's something you have in your mind, that there is a spotlight on you. Now, when you're playing a game in your living room, you don't really think to yourself that eyes are on me. You don't feel any kind of pressure there. But when you're streaming, you have that pressure on you. You may think to yourself, it's easy to do that. It's easy to have someone's eyes on you. Now, is it really easy to have someone's eyes on you, a complete stranger who doesn't know a thing about you, who may judge you for each and every action that you may take? Maybe you lift your hand a certain way. Maybe your hair is messy. They're going to judge you for that, because that's how people are. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but a lot of people will do that. Like, for instance, me here right now. I'm not streaming, this is a video, but I may have my hair sticking up in I believe it isn't, but I may have it sticking up in a certain place. There's someone who's watching this video that's going to look at it, and they're going to judge me for that. See, so there's a lot of different things that when you look at a streamer and you see them stream and you say, oh, this is easy, I can do that. Streaming is a piece of cake. Well, there are a lot of things that you're not thinking about, you're not considering, because you haven't been in that position. You're just looking at it really quickly from the outside and you're like, it's the easiest job in the world. There are difficulties that come along with streaming, and well, this is just me trying to shed some light on what those difficulties are and what it is that these streamers are talking about, because it's easy to look at them and say, it's easy what they're doing, I can do that. And I'll admit, because they're in the top 1% as you're looking at them now, it is easy for them it's easier. It's a lot easier than someone trying to break into streaming as a career, which you have to remember, they were once trying to make a living doing this. They were on the outside. So they sort of did go through this thing where they had to break through barriers and make it to the 1%, where it's significantly easier. And they may still feel like they're in that mindset of trying to break, even though they're not, and they're delegating a lot of their tasks. They may sort of be stuck that they were once in there mentally, and they have sort of a disillusioned look on where they are now. They're still stuck in where they were previously, even though they're not there now. So I think that may be where it is that these streamers are coming from when they're saying these things. But again, you shouldn't be comparing jobs to one another, because in the end, no one really wins by saying my job is harder than yours or your job is harder than mine. No one wins. And again, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't compare jobs, even though these streamers are doing that. But again, anyone can stream. Anyone can, as long as you can turn on a webcam and hit the stream button, well, that's the only bar to streaming. There is no other bar. You don't have to be Einstein or Bill Nye or Carl Sagan, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Stephen Hawking. You don't have to be a scientist in order to stream, or one of the top minds of the world, of society. Anyone can stream. So yeah, that is what I believe they mean, or what they mean. That's an insight into streaming and where they may be coming from when they say it's harder than a 9-to-5, which you shouldn't say that. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to compare. You shouldn't compare jobs. So that is going to be it for this one. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this. You can leave a comment down below What do you think about streaming being harder than, is streaming harder than a 9 to 5? What do you think? Yeah, and if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you can leave a like, and if you're new around here, maybe consider a sub to the channel as well, so you can come back again sometime. Alright, I'm Wolf, and until next time.